meaning. I think that you can probably make that happen. And they're all about the same theme. In fact, everything tonight, every word that we're singing, every word that we speak, every image that we see, the prayers in which we engage in, they are all on the same theme. And it's not about the election. It's about being about Jesus. The first story comes to us on the media. Maybe you've been paying attention a little bit for the last 8 days or so. Who can help but see the devastation of Sandy? The hundreds of miles of land that have been altered, and the millions of lives that have been affected. And in the midst of all of that, very small acts of kindness like this one. Jack, do we have that picture? This picture, what I want you to imagine for me, is a gate. And on this gate are electrical cords, and they are running out from one of the few houses that had electricity. And they put on there lots and lots of strips with a sign that says, "We have electricity, take what you need." And people were standing there charging their cell phones and their iPads and their computers and anything else they needed so that they could call family members and tell them that they were okay. A small act of kindness. I know that I would be grateful to have the opportunity to charge my iPhone. It may seem small, but people needing help or to reassure family, neighbors, it is a huge act of mercy. Second story. Like most teens, 17-year-old Josh was excited to go to a haunted house. So last week he did. Some of us did too. And on his way home from the cutting edge, the big demon one, on the side of the freeway, on his way home to Grandview, he came across a really bad accident near Rosedale Street and I-35 here in Fort Worth. So he did what we all hoped that we would do. Josh got out and lived out an act of kindness. He got out of his car and he tried to help the strangers who were in trouble. So many onlookers were just going by and rubbernecking, not seeing if they were okay, but not Josh. And as he got out and walked to go help these people, he was struck by a drunk driver, thrown across a guardrail down to the street 17 feet below, and then hit again. Our next story comes to us about yet again what I think is the notion of a neighbor. The story of an unidentified person who takes a windy, treacherous route full of robbers and violence on the way from Jerusalem to Jericho. And we know, as a film plot thickens, the music begins to build. We know that this road is a dangerous road. We know something bad is going to happen to him. It is not going to end well, and in truth, it doesn't. He is robbed, he is beaten, he is left for dead. Presumably by the side of the road to be food for whatever wild animals might stumble across his carcass. And then the plot thickens even more, because 3 more characters enter into the story. A priest who was probably coming from the temple, leading souls in worship, reminding them what it means to be the chosen ones of God. And he looks as we would. But he doesn't touch him. For who in God's name knows what this person might have? What possibly might I catch by touching him? Surely someone else is on their way. And then Jesus introduces a Levite. Levites were members of the house of Levi. We know that. They are the only ones of Jacob's sons not to receive land when Joshua brought them, those tribes, across the Jordan River. And these were the ones that would perform all of the religious duties. In fact, the superstar Moses, remember him? of the tribe of Levi. We like Moses, don't we? We feel good about Moses. But this Levite, just like the priest, came, saw, and passed by on the other side. So far, Jesus' listeners probably would have liked this story a whole lot. You see, then, as I am assuming now, there was kind of this grassroots resistance to priests and the pious. I'm sure none of you in this room have that kind of resistance at all. But we know, don't we, it is difficult to say that you like your minister. You're really not supposed to say that. I mean, really? What a mess the religious leadership has made of mercy and hope and salvation. Then as now, the priests and the pious were forever making you feel like you're not giving enough. You're not going to church enough. You're not devout enough in your faith. Certainly not compared to us. So we have these, what I would call spiritual mucky mucks, revealed by Jesus to be, I don't know, heartless and cruel. And I think that the people listening to this story saw them as the hypocrites that they surely were. And I think they were happy. You guys are sitting there in stunned silence, but they would be hooping it up. Yeah, those people. Yeah, get them, Jesus. Wonder what's coming next. It's deliciously entertaining, isn't it? We can't wait to find out what the next horrible story is about clergy. Right? And they're starting to think, you know, this story's really good. What's this fellow going to come up with next? And so Jesus obliges them, doesn't he? With a real shocker. For the third person in this story is a Samaritan. We've talked about them before, haven't we? You remember these people? In fact, at this time, I want you to do something for me. Boo. Boo. Now hiss. Now when I say Samaritan again, you got to do it again. Enter the Samaritan. And that's what they were doing too. A Samaritan, this was the enemy. This was the person who has not quite figured out that life is too short to live in Dallas. You know what I mean? Like it's that person. Here and now that Jesus chooses to enter in the story. And this person, shockingly, is the positive example that Jesus places before his listeners. He came, just like the other two. He saw, just like the other two. But then he responded with mercy. I love Luke in this passage because Luke chooses a word that he only uses 3 times in his whole gospel. And the word that he uses for mercy that we translate as mercy is really gut-wrenching compassion. And the only other time that Luke uses gut-wrenching compassion is in the story of the prodigal son for the father. And a word he uses for Jesus at the end of his life. And he uses it for a Samaritan. It's a loaded word. Gut-wrenching compassion. So I have to stop right now and I have to say, whoa, I'm uncomfortable. There are way too many stories of other people being a good Samaritan, and let's face it, I'm not. I don't know about you. I mean, I want to be. You see those minister types that had ignored this man. Those people that did not give their electricity to their neighbors in need. The people that rubbernecked their way across Rosedale. Those people. Those people. Us. It's tough text. Thing is that the religious, pious, those that come to church, you sitting here, you're supposed to be the ones that discern what the community of God is supposed to do and who is in the community of God. And if we follow our scriptures and we follow the way of Jesus, we know that that means everyone. That we are called to be mercy and hope and life and redemption for everyone. So story number 4 sets up our song for tonight. Some of you have Whataburger on the front of your tag, for we know that's Nate's favorite place to eat. Some of you just have a picture of Nathan Hubble. And I was trying to figure out, after talking to Nate, about this song and why he wrote it. And so I'm gonna tell the story of this song asking questions while the band comes up. Don't look at the lyrics yet. Don't cheat. I saw you. How many of us hold ourselves back from engaging with God and neighbor? How many of us cannot wait for a light to change at the stop sign or the stoplight or at an intersection because we are tired of looking at that homeless man and they're looking at us? Please, light, just change. I don't want to look at them. Don't ask me for money as I'm talking on my iPhone. How many of us create the chains around our hearts so that we miss the glimpse of God calling us to acts of mercy? All of these questions and more are in this song, this original tune by our very own Nathan Hubble. He penned these lyrics, he says, after a troubling time of playing music where people were there but they didn't really care. And he's pouring out his soul, talking about the way that the world should fit together and hope and goodness in the world, but they don't care. They're just there for their own agenda and the next beer. And then an interaction with a homeless man in Austin where Nate wonders, does anybody look at you either? Does anybody really understand your pain? Are any of us willing to be your Good Samaritan? And then this understanding about how much he, like the homeless man, needs an act of mercy. If you ask Nate about this tune, maybe he'll tell you this and maybe he won't. But it's about 2 saints in his own life that reminded him that he could do more. That the only thing keeping him bound were his own chains that he had created that said he could no longer succeed. So it's the perfect tune for All Saints Sunday. When we remember those that have gone before, those that were our own Good Samaritans, those that allowed our chains to be released. It's a powerful song about those that have paved the way of faith for us and their challenge. It's called I'll Catch You. parable and Jesus' parable tell us the same thing. That we've got to start changing what we think is quid pro quo and who is our neighbor and what we are supposed to do. It's easy, people. It's called mercy. What all of these stories seem to tell us is that it doesn't matter what class division is, because it's all rendered void when you follow Jesus. Neighbors do not recognize social class, but instead show mercy to those in need, regardless of race or religion or region, and with no thought for reward. For mercy only sees need and responds with gut-level compassion. Our duty is to show that we all belong to the kingdom of God. The lawyer asked, "Who is my neighbor?" And the question assumes that we're going to have a speech on it, a list to follow. Who is near and who isn't, that kind of thing. But at what point are we willing to start saying that the neighbor is our own self and that there is no stranger in the kingdom of God? Who exactly are we obligated to love besides ourselves? Jesus ignores that question, you know. He does it so wonderfully. Instead, he tells the story of an enemy. An enemy who, through his merciful actions, became a neighbor. If a Samaritan may become a neighbor to a Jewish man and a lawyer is enjoined to be like the Samaritan, you know, those Dallasites, then anyone, including those who live in Dallas, can become our neighbor. It's not a question of where to draw the line, people, but rather of erasing that line entirely. So are we the man on the street left by the side of the road? Or are we the ones to whom that we will only give attention to until the stoplight really changes? Nate's song reminds me tonight that although God inspires all creation and its creatures, sometimes it's the most unlikely one that responds to God's call of mercy. I hope it's me. My hope tonight for you and for me is that mercy would break open into our hearts, even in the midst of our own personal pain, the pain of others, and indeed even the pain of creation. And let's face it, if we say we follow the way of Jesus, which is a way of love, then that means we must live and act with mercy. For you see, there's a light at the end of a tunnel. And if you hold my hand, I'll show you. For there's a lot more waiting for us at the end of the road. Thanks be to God.